So here's a little bit of what we're going to run through today. I'm going to start by giving you an overview of both Mulesoft, Cloud Hub, and the Integration App program, and then cover a little bit of who Zia is, why we're engaged here, and the building blocks of the paper-to-mobile iApps that we're providing. Pat will then jump into the specifics of the Intact iApp for invoicing that we're covering and show you a demo of that. So with that, let's jump in. So some of you may be already familiar with Mulesoft, but I know that some of you are not. So I wanted to do a quick overview of Mulesoft, and then, like I said, jump into a little bit around the Cloud Hub and the iApp program specifically. So for those who don't know, Mulesoft is about a 10-year-old company now, 10-year-old technology. It is the world's most widely used open source enterprise service bus. And I think it's interesting to note that about 35% of the global 500 companies do use Mule, so it is very pervasive. You can see some of the use cases here. Obviously, traditional SOA as well as legacy system migration. Why has it been so successful? I think there's a few things to point out. Because it is flexible and modern architecture, it gives you a much faster time to ROI. When you combine that with the fact that it's open source and open source licensing model, it really does give a strong return on investment. Another piece of it contributing to the ROI is the lower development cost. Because it is standard Java technology, it's something that you don't have to invest in specialized resources to focus on delivering. Again, I mentioned it is a flexible architecture, so it can grow with you. And finally, despite the fact that it is, or maybe in fact, because it is open source technology, it is very highly performing, and one example of that is H&R Block currently uses 13,000 Mulesoft servers in their distributed environment. And the nice thing, and again going back to the ROI point, is it does run typically on commodity hardware, so that's another piece. You don't have to invest in specialized technologies. So I guess one other point, I did mention H&R Block as one example, but wanted to run through some of the 3,200 companies that are using Mulesoft and the technologies that they're in, because this is a theme that we'll be carrying through this presentation. Again, with H&R Block, with 5 of the world's top 10 banks, financial services is a very strong area for Mule. And somewhere they've been very successful, very large, obviously, transactional use cases. In addition to that, governments is an area that we'll talk a little bit more about as well later, healthcare, and certainly manufacturing. And obviously, if you look at the logos here on this slide, some of the world's largest companies there. Okay. So then, again, Mulesoft got their start as a traditional enterprise service bus, or ESB, focusing on SOA solutions. So what is this Cloud Hub? What is this all about? And as I'm sure most of you are involved in conversations in your own companies, right? Cloud, you can't get involved in an IT discussion without having a cloud discussion. So, you've heard about SaaS, you've heard about PaaS, so the Cloud Hub, the concept here is an integration platform as a service. And the reason this is important is, and you can see it represented here on the slide, there is not a single cloud, right? You all know that. It's really a series of clouds out there, right? And whether it's your cloud platform, and that might be Amazon, that might be Rackspace, that might be something else, whether it's your SaaS applications, right, and you can see a number of them here, obviously Salesforce, Sugar CRM, NetSuite, companies like that. Certainly your social technologies, right, and again, a range of them listed here. And then on the other side, you have your enterprise systems, and more these days, those might be deployed on a cloud system somewhere. So there's this need for this Cloud Hub, and that's what Mule has created. That is the connection platform that is really the basis of then this iApp program. So what is the iApp program? It takes what you just saw and really provides a pre-built, pre-packaged end-to-end integration for very common use cases, right? So the integration apps connect and automate the business process that go across these multiple applications. So one example here would be, if you look at the Zora iApp for tax, which integrates Avalara as a tax technology, it pre-populates these connections, really greatly reducing your time to solution and getting you up and running. So that's an overview of the iApp program. We'll obviously dive into a lot more depth when we talk about Zia's paper to mobile iApps and then the specific iApp we have for today for Intact. So with that, want to jump into why are we here? What's the role we play, and why did Mule approach us to provide these iApps around what we term paper to mobile? So this is a Zia term that we coined late last year, which really pulls together our expertise in the content space and what we were seeing from people and the requests we were having from people to integrate across the enterprise, to integrate their content, to deliver their content across the enterprise. So for us, there's a strong enterprise content management component to it in the middle. Obviously, at the front end, you start with paper, and that's really about document capture and what is in effect intelligent document capture today, and we'll talk a lot more about that. At the user-facing side, we provide UI solutions, sometimes custom web UI, sometimes portal solutions. And then obviously you have the enterprise integration component across all that. And then more and more, that is then delivered through a mobile solution. And so again, Zia spans this entire spectrum, and our focus is delivering to customers what they're asking for, which is, again, content solutions across paper to mobile. One other point down at the bottom, you can see what is really the core of our philosophy, which is acting with integrity across whether it's clients, our partners, or our employees. And that's really led to us, we believe, being named as one of the 50 Colorado companies to watch here in 2012 across a wide range of industries. So what does that look like graphically? I just explained our paper to mobile model. Here you can see it visually. Obviously, again, you start with the paper, and we'll dive into the partnerships a lot more, but you move into a technology like an Ephesoft for intelligent document capture. You have your content repository in the middle. It's delivered as mobile solutions. It's exposed via again, either custom UI or productized UI or portal solutions. And then at the back end, it's integrated with a wide range of different technologies. One thing we won't be covering today is the ability to work directly or with Mulesoft to integrate in a multi-repository basis. So if you have additional content repositories besides, for example, Alfresco, that's another solution that we've been asked to provide and do provide to people. So, looking at specifically some of these partnerships, as you can see, we focus on open source technologies. We believe in open source. We believe in the value of open source to the enterprise, and that's where we've invested, and that's where our solutions are built. So we've obviously been, as you can see here, fairly successful with that. We are Alfresco's current partner of the year. We are Ephesoft's current partner of the year. We have a strong partnership and development partnership with WeWebU out of Germany, who are doing some very innovative things with technologies. Again, LifeRay we mentioned as a portal solution, and clearly we're here today to focus around our partnership, our strong partnership with Mulesoft. One of the other things that makes us unique is we are not just a system integrator and solution provider, but we also develop our own products and add-ons. So I'll talk a lot about the mobile side in a little while, although do want to point out the one at the bottom, the Denver 311 is an interesting enterprise integration case as well as a mobile case where we've developed a mobile application that is then integrated with PeopleSoft and sets up a workflow there. So again, an area that we're focused on. If you look at the two technologies on the left, Fresh Project is a specific product we've built around Alfresco for project management use cases, and then Insight for Ephesoft is a reporting and monitoring tool and technology that we've built. So again, moving through this fairly quickly because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Pat to obviously jump into what I think most of you are mostly here to look at, but did want to sort of tie off the alignment between what I talked about with Mulesoft and their focus and some of what we do here at Zia. So you can see these are some of the areas, some of the verticals that we really specialize in, particularly financial services. That's our largest vertical, as well as technology companies. We're working with some of the world's largest technology companies, delivering paper-to-mobile solutions for them, but also media publishing, healthcare, legal, and higher education. And then we're very excited to announce we've set up really, on the back of a large number of customer projects and solutions that we're delivering, our own now department focused on government specifically, what we're calling Zia Government Solutions. And this really spans the gamut from federal to state to local governments, really across the country. You can see a number of them here in California and in Colorado, but it is across the country and certainly at the federal level. We'll be having a separate webinar in September if anyone's interested in learning more about that. The other thing that I think is interesting, and obviously we talked about cloud earlier and cloud infrastructure. One of the things that we found is that while there is a large number of companies providing cloud infrastructure out there, and we talked about Amazon, we talked about Rackspace, and there are a lot of SaaS applications. One of the requests that we've seen over and over is for someone to manage the enterprise applications in the cloud. So that's what we've launched as the Zia Managed Cloud. That is our ability to manage for you your Alfresco, your Ephesoft, your LifeRay, your Mulesoft applications. We have the ability to provide that ourselves on our own hosting services. We have the ability to provide that for EC2 or on your own cloud. And again, the focus here and the differentiator is the fact that we're managing not the infrastructure, although we are doing that, right, but that's not the unique selling point. I think it's really the fact that we're managing the application for you. And finally, last slide on Zia here. Again, we've talked about the mobile component of it. So it started for us with creating a product called Fresh Docs, which was a mobile content management application connecting to any CMIS repository. And for those who are interested in learning more about CMIS, please let us know. I'm not going to go into that right now. That then became the core of what is now Alfresco Mobile. So we jointly developed Alfresco Mobile with them, and that's available to any Alfresco user or company, again, based on Zia's Fresh Docs application exposing content on your mobile iPad, iPhone device. And as I mentioned, we are partnering with a really interesting company out of Germany called WeWebU and developing what is really a one-of-a-kind mobile ECM application called Mobile Work Desk. And we'll be actually talking about that next month in a webinar as well for anyone who might be interested. So with that, we're going to transition away from that introduction, and apologies that we spent a little bit of time on that, but I know for some people some of this is new, so we wanted to at least give you that background and really dive into, okay, what are these paper-to-mobile iApps specifically? We introduced the iApp program. Again, this idea of prepackaged end-to-end integrations that you can really use to jumpstart your solution. And then what are the components? We'll talk a little bit more about some of really the two key ones involved here besides Mulesoft, and then get into the specific one here. So with that, Obviously, this diagram is going to look fairly familiar from what I covered earlier for you, but it's a little bit of a change, as some of you will probably notice. So again, we have Ephesoft at the top, at the beginning, really with the ingestion of capture, right? The ingestion of intelligent document capture. We have that then, in this case, going into Mulesoft directly, which is then where it's passed to the different components, right? And those different components, again, we'll talk about the Intact one specifically today, but certainly can be a NetSuite, can be a QuickBooks, can be a Salesforce or a Sugar CRM, can be an SAP, can be any of those components with the connectors that are available from Mulesoft today. Then on the other side, you're going to store that information into your content management repository. So again, our focus is on Alfresco, but certainly it can be a FileNet, it can be a SharePoint, it can be other repositories, and then exposing that out via your mobile applications, whether it's pre-packaged mobile applications like Alfresco Mobile, or again, we have the ability, if you're interested in taking our FreshDocs product and creating your own enterprise ECM mobile application, or OEMing that technology. So, sorry, I jumped ahead one too many there. So just very quickly on Ephesoft, and then Pat's going to get much more into this when he dives into the presentation, which is focused around how Ephesoft is bringing in the information for you. So for those who don't know Ephesoft, again, the focus is on document capture and really intelligent document capture of not just the scanning, but the classification and extraction. Focus is absolutely on Ephesoft as an enterprise class technology. It is open source. It is available and ready for the cloud. You can try a cloud trial today from Ephesoft. And some of the areas that they focus on, and you'll start to see, obviously some trends here, financial services, right, and very specifically mortgage banking and mortgage documents, and that's, one of the strongest use cases today for intelligent document capture, and where Ephesoft has a tremendous depth and backgrounds, insurance and insurance forms and claim forms, healthcare related, and certainly accounting and invoice documents. So those are some of the key areas. Obviously, there's a lot more information we can provide to you on Ephesoft. And if you are interested in learning more beyond what Pat's going to share and show you a little bit later, we did have a webinar last month on Ephesoft's new 3.0. We gave a preview of what is now released from Ephesoft. And so if you're interested, you can ping one of us or just go to our website to get that information. A couple other points. We are delivering, and we do deliver Ephesoft's training. So Pat actually himself wrote the Ephesoft training in conjunction with them. And there will be a training. Next one is in September in the Los Angeles area if anyone's interested. And I think most exciting, coming out end of next month or beginning of the following month, is the new book on Ephesoft that was jointly written with between Pat and some others here at Zia and Ike Cavas, the CTO of Ephesoft. So again, if you're interested in learning more, we're happy to share that with you. Alfresco, been around a little bit longer than Ephesoft, so maybe more familiar to some of you. Again, this is our content repository for these paper-to-mobile solutions. So traditional document management and associated records management is a DoD 5015.2 certified records management technology, exposing out to the web, again, either custom web apps, LifeRay, Drupal, things like that. Clearly now focused on collaboration and sharing and social integration. You'll have seen a lot of that messaging from Alfresco. And then the exciting thing, I think, is that, and where we often use it, is as a content platform, really, to build these enterprise solutions. So as I said, been around a little bit longer, about 8 years old now, U.S. headquarters in Atlanta, but they have representation across the country. Now up well over 3 million downloads, and similar type numbers to Mulesoft in terms of almost 3,000 customers around the world. And you can see even some of the same names here. Certainly, again, a focus on financial services. Obviously, you can see some travel here as well. and some others. And then down at the right is actually Alfresco's mobile application, which again is co-developed with Zia based on our FreshDocs platform. So with that, that ends the introductory portion. Again, hopefully didn't take too much of your time here, but hope that was useful for people. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Pat, and he's going to really get into the specifics of this iApp for Intact for accounting and show you what it does. So thanks everyone for listening.
Well, thank you, Phil, and Emily. And we're going to first look at one of the slides that Phil brought up, and then we're going to transfer it to my machine for the actual demonstration. So I wanted to first cover just kind of like the architecture, what's going on, what we have developed today. And I encourage anybody that's on the phone with any questions, go ahead and ask those at the end, as well as go ahead and reach out to us if you want a deeper dive on any of these particular integrations or technologies or how they might be used in different use cases. So what we're doing today is we're using Ephesoft to do classification and extraction of invoice documents. That information can come from scans, faxes, emails, network drives, various ways of importing it, and then which batch class will be defined. That batch class will have the ability to understand the contents that are coming in to figure out what kind of document is going into Ephesoft. And then once that classification occurs, then you're going to have particular index fields that you want to extract off of that information. In this case, what we're doing is we're pushing that information, exporting it into Mulesoft, where there can be a relationship that's created for those invoices from both the Alfresco side of things and Intact. And then those actually have a relationship in which we're able to pull the actual image from Alfresco into Intact in case somebody wanted to do a deeper dive into a particular invoice that they're processing inside of Intact. So I think at this point, let's go ahead and switch it over to the live demonstration. Is everybody able to see my screen? Thank you for the confirmation. So what you're going to see right here is the first thing you're going to do is figure out, well, what am I trying to process? In this case, I might have a couple different invoice types. I might have some customer numbers, some invoices, and figure out the different flavors, if you will, the different formatting, different versions of the different invoices. In this case, we have two different document types. We have something looking at here where we have customer numbers and invoice numbers and dates, date due, amounts, typical things you would find on an invoice. It might look a little bit different using for a different client or customer that you're trying to process, where you have the policy number here, the billing date, the due date, again, a due amount. So the first thing that we're going to do is look at Ephesoft to see how that definition occurs, because there is going to be some customization for this iApp for your particular documents or accounts payable documents that you're going to be processing. So what you see right now is the administration interface. This is from the 2.5 release because we did this integration about a month ago, in which in the meantime the 3.0 release. So I encourage you to go check out that webinar that's on our site to see the differences between the 2.5 and the 3.0 release. There's some significant enhancements. So what we would see right here are the top-level batch classes that are defined within Ephesoft. Within a batch class, there's two major components inside of there. What you're going to have is your document type definitions. And when you define those document types, you're going to define it for two things. One is for classification. So classification is going to be, this is this type of document. And when you define this type of document, it could be multi-page, it could be a single page, it could have various formats. In this case, we have a single document type defined invoice, but we set it up to classify using those two different formats that you saw previously. When you define your document type, you're going to give it samples for that classification, and then you're going to be able to teach the document or the system how to understand where to start and end. So you no longer have those classical mechanisms for having to separate sheets, separator sheets, barcodes. You can actually use the contents of the document to let it understand what that document is, where it starts, where it ends, It's going to get a certain confidence level. Again, you're going to set that confidence level, and then you're going to be able to process and define those documents. Once you have that established, then you're going to figure out what are the fields that I want to extract from those types of documents. So in this, we might have an invoice number, the invoice date, the fields that we spoke to earlier when we're looking at the actual invoice. So if you go inside of one of these fields, then you're going to be able to define how am I going to understand where to retrieve that information on that particular document. If we go back to one of the samples that we were looking at, sorry. You're going to be able to see here's an invoice number, and we're going to look to the right of it for a particular pattern. And so that might be what what the administration or batch class administrator is going to be able to teach the system. And we might look down here and make sure here's another one. So we might find it twice on this. So then you feed the system samples so that it can run extraction rules, and that way you can test your extraction before you actually release your batch class for your production server. So in here I have a rule, and that rule is going to look for this particular pattern, which is invoice no, which we saw on that document. And then it's going to look for a value pattern where it's 8 to 12 digits. Once I define this rule, then I can test that rule out. And you can see that now within the sample that I gave it, that it was able to find that twice on the system, and that I can correct and move forward. And you can have multiple rules like we do here for the particular different documents that we're going to be processing. In this case, the second document that we're looking at, we can also test that, and now we can find that particular invoice number that was on that page. So once you have that all defined, then you have a place that we're going to release it to. In this case, where we're releasing to is Mulesoft, where it has the intelligence to then push it to the Alfresco server and the Intact server, which is now what we're going to see. Well, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead of myself. So within the operator interface of Ephesoft, and we purposely have this established inside of a validation state, there's two major steps for the operator. The first step is a review step. So the review step, and both of these are optional, occurs when a document comes inside of your system and it's below the confidence threshold that you set. And so that gives you the chance of an operator to specify, a knowledge worker to specify, here's where the beginning of the document is set, here's the end of it. They can split and merge documents, and they can specify that kind of document type. In this batch class, we have a simple one document type, but you can have many document types for a batch class. That way you don't have to do pre-processing of these within a mailroom or having to feed them in separate batch classes, or what might be referred to classically as a job, select different jobs that would understand that one document type. So we can have one batch class that is associated with many document types. In this case, we have it stopped inside of the validation step. So everything just flew through to validation, and then there was something in validation that that triggered a need for an operator to touch that particular batch class. So if we open this particular batch, we can see that we had two documents. Those were the two documents that we saw earlier. The first one, you can see, was able to extract, and it was able to validate all the information on here. You can see on this second one, we can go ahead and take a look at that first one. We can see where the information was extracted on that. The operator would have a chance, if something was not extracted, to select a different value on here by clicking the particular field and then clicking on another value. As you can see, this is a pretty good interface for being able to have an operator streamlined and going push through. Many of the operations are all through keyboard shortcuts, so it gives them the capability to really fly through these batches for when they have to touch them. Ideally, you don't have operators touching these at all. But in this case, we have one document, and we're looking for a particular format of a date. So you can look here, we have a message saying the date should be in this particular format. It was able to extract a two-digit date for the year for both of these. And so we can have an operator also do some key entry inside of here, fix what was wrong, and then they can press on. So now that batch has went to Mulesoft, and that batch is going to be processed by Mulesoft by pushing it to Alfresco, creating the links to Intact, and we're going to be able to see that now. So I want to look in Alfresco, you can have any sort of taxonomy that you want. This one's pretty much just pushing those documents inside of there. You can see about an hour ago I pushed some more through. And what I wanted to show on this side is that metadata is being stored. So we did some content model mapping. The content model is going to define the document types and the metadata that's involved inside of those documents. So inside of here you can see that we have an invoice number, we have some due dates, we have an amount that was pushed to this particular document instance. Where operators are going to truly process these invoices is inside of Intact. So inside of Intact, you're able to see that there was these ones that I'm pushing through. You can see that these amounts were equal to, they're kind of repetitive, inside of Intact. So those are the various invoices that I have inside of there. If I go inside of one of these invoices and view it, I can see some similar metadata that's involved that was extracted from Ephesoft, like the due date, like the transaction amount. This unique identifier is what Mulesoft is doing to link everything together. It also exposes particular methods for being able to retrieve information. So the information in this case I can see is going to go and retrieve the actual image out of Alfresco, not stored in Intact. And so you have this system that's totally integrated. So now I can look at the invoice and be able to see what was inside of it in case I had any questions while processing that particular document. Those same features that are exposed could also be used by a LifeRay portal for exposing this to end customers. It could be exposed by many of these. So it could be exposed by Intact and LifeRay, because these methods that are being exposed on as services are able to be reused, whether you're swapping out a particular piece of this, if you're going from Intact to QuickBooks, or if you're able to add on a piece to it, like saying, okay, now I want a customer portal. So not going into too much detail around the technical background of all these pieces, I think that summarizes the demonstration that I wanted to show for this particular webinar. And so I think that we can open it at this point to questions.
Great, thanks, Pat. So if you do have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat function on your GoToWebinar dashboard. Looks like we have the first question for Pat. What is your typical implementation plan?
The typical implementation plan for the iApp resembles much like we're going to have for an engagement where somebody just wants totally custom work, where we go in, we figure out, in this case, what kind of documents they're trying to process, being able to define that classification and extraction rules for being able to get information out of them. And then, of course, the content model, because the content model where it defines the document types and the metadata that's involved for those particular document types may differ from client to client. And so that implementation goes inside of the Alfresco side of things, that integration to Intact and Ephesoft. So that's a configuration aspect to that. And then, of course, being able to define any other integrations that they might be necessary for a legacy system that they may need to expose these to, or it could be something new like a LifeRay portal.
Okay. Second question looks like it's also for Pat. The presentation obviously covered a specific use case, but could this technology be used for other verticals?
Yes. So within the vertical that we're talking about now for accounts payable, AP, it may be very different for financial services. This could be used for mortgage classification and extraction. This could be used for insurance applications and claims processing. It could be used for supply chain management, making sure that these accounts payable are extracting line item information and being able to do resolution between their two customers, which are the shipper and the actual customer that they have. And also we've done this implementation very much like this architecture for people that are in a public sector like human services, for being able to get various services that are invoked by a state or county and being able to apply for those, give the particular information that they need to, and being able to process them in a more streamlined fashion.
Great. All right, well, I think that wraps us up for questions. So once again, thanks for Phil and Pat for your presentations. Everybody will get an email from us tomorrow with a link to the webinar recording. as well as some news on upcoming webinars that we referenced earlier. So have a great day, everybody, and thanks for joining us.